Welcome everybody to Brain Health Unchaining Your Pain coaching to really help you in support of the show learn how you can really create a high performing brain and understand what steps you need that are really necessary to help you unchain, unlock and unleash your full potential so that you can really step into your best self and get the most out of your brain. My name is Dr. Ruth Mary Allen. I'm a certified brain health professional, high performance coach, Havening Techniques practitioner, and brain health trainer, and also motivational speaker and trainer. And it is my absolute pleasure to be with you today to really help you learn more about what brain health is, what the difference is between brain health and mental health, and how you can really learn the core principles, the really fundamentals that are necessary for you to optimize your unique brain. And also I'll be talking about how you can really unchain your pain from a past trauma or an unhelpful experience to really uncover the best of you and show up as that authentic you that you were meant to be. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into the presentation. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feedback, please do post in the chat below. And if you've got anything that comes to mind after this workshop, then please drop us an email and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have or get you scheduled in for a consultation with us if you want to follow up. So let's go into the workshop now. So today's topic is really setting those foundations, the core principles to helping you build a high performing brain. And this isn't about just feeling normal. This is about helping you really feel extraordinary. And that's what brain health is all about. We all have a unique brain. No one brain is the same as the other. And it's about getting the most, the best out of the brain that you have that is your engine for life. And really, in support of the show Brain Health Unchaining Your Pain, we're going to set the foundations for you to learn about how you can really start that journey by letting go of things that don't serve you going forward into the future. So what will you gain from this training? You'll get a deeper understanding of the complexities associated with brain health and the well-being challenges that we experience, and particularly focused on the impact that our environment, and then we're talking about infections and toxins, and the big one topic of discussion at the moment is COVID, can really have on our brain health. And that goes beyond the concerns that we have from a mental health standpoint. You'll get an insight into your brain reserve and really how this determines your risk for any brain health struggles. And that includes brain fog, which is common for COVID, difficulty concentrating, again, another brain symptom as a consequence of catching COVID, reduced pain, pound performance, exhaustion, headache, stress, anxiety, and depression. So that whole spectrum in terms of how our brain is performing and is it performing optimally. You'll get clarity on what the difference is between brain health and mental health, and really why it's so important to start talking about brain health. I'll give you knowledge into the core principles behind building a high-performing brain, and we'll be talking about the 5 principles of brain health to really help you assess and boost your brain power and performance. And then finally, you'll get an insight into how you can unchain your pain from past trauma and unhelpful experiences and tackle any day-to-day struggles. And there is in this presentation exclusive to this workshop an opportunity for you to get 30% discount on coaching in relation to unchaining your pain. So please do take advantage of that. It is not available anywhere else. So workshop etiquette. Please do not record this presentation or take photos. This is designed to be a safe haven for all, and the information presented is copyrighted. Post any questions, as I said, that you may have, or any contributions you'd like to make. Please do be polite in the chat role. Please take notes, because this presentation, this workshop is here to help you learn how you can build that high performing brain of yours and improve your connection with your best self. So just a little bit about my journey. So I went into a really dark patch back in October 2016, shortly after completing the ride across Britain, which was from Land's End to John O'Groats the year before. And here you can see me holding a bottle of champagne and a huge bag of chocolate buttons, which were my go-tos to help me feel better. And when I hit that deep dark low in October 2016, it was when I was working in a really toxic corporate environment, and I just suffered a really unpleasant and traumatic miscarriage. And I was told by the workplace that I had no emotional intelligence, and I already felt like a biological failure. And then on top of that was stacked the feeling of being an emotional failure, and it sent me into a very quick downward spiral. I was chronically stressed, and I started having suicidal thoughts, and that was the point that I realized I needed to pull the eject cord and get myself support and ask for help to get me out of the deep dark place that I was in. And I reached out for help in the support in the form of high performance coaching, and I went on an amazing high performance coaching journey. The person shown there is Brendan Burchard, and I discovered it wasn't just about me, it was the surroundings that having a critical impact on my brain health. And that's really important, because very often when we talk about mental health, we talk about the person having the problem. When we look at brain health, we talk about the whole system that may be causing the problem. So we're not labeling the person, we're looking at the organ, and we're understanding what aspects of the system are affecting that person's brain function, that person's brain health, and preventing it from performing optimally. As part of that amazing journey, that transformational journey I went on, I ended up losing 27 pounds in weight, committed to being the fittest I've ever been. And I was able to take my mum to one of the academies to help her take back control of her mental health and well-being. And I was also able on that journey to meet the amazing Dr. Daniel Amen, who is a lead expert in functional imaging of brains, who has clinics in the USA that look at SPECT imaging to look at the brain function of individuals and help them optimize their unique brain. And that's where I really realized that I could combine my background experience, my PhD in medical imaging, with my life story, with my journey, and with my interest in going back into the medical space and helping people really harness their potential and get the best out of themselves. And that needed to start with me. And that's really where I started back in October 2016. So what was the ripple effect of that transformational journey? I was able to realize a dream of ski touring across the French Alps. I was able to help my mum climb a mountain. That was one of her bucket list items. And I was also able to help my dad realize his dream of writing children's stories. And he published his first book in October 2019. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 weeks before the book was published, but he did get the amazing opportunity to see the excitement on children's faces as he read his story of Peter Pixie visits the rescue centre. And I was also able to give birth to our beautiful daughter Lily, which occurred 8 months after ski touring in the Alps. Yes, we were not ski touring by ourselves. There was a passenger on board. And had I not been on that transformational journey and really optimized my unique brain, I definitely would not have become the mum that I am today. So brain health, why do we need to start talking about it? Why is it so different to mental health? And what are really the core principles to building a high performing brain? Well, our brain is involved in everything that you do. It's responsible for how you feel, how you act, the behaviors that you have, how you connect with yourself, your core values and beliefs, and the world around you, how you think, and how you sense everything. And we know that our senses are so important. And if we think about COVID attacks the brain, it attacks the olfactory nerve, which is part of our brain, and it causes us to lose our taste, our sense of taste and our sense of smell. And they're two really important senses that we possess. And of course, our brain is our organ of intelligence. It's our organ of character. It's responsible for every decision that you make. It is our engine of life. It runs organizations, it runs governments, it runs our family, and it runs you. Yet the thing is, we rarely talk about the brain in the context of optimizing our mental health and well-being. That's a huge mistake because it is our organ of life. And when your brain works right, you work right. But when your brain is in trouble, you will be in trouble too. So what are the brain systems and how does that affect our behavior? Well, very simplistically, we have the prefrontal cortex, which is at the front of our brain here. That is responsible for your focus, your forethought, and your impulse control. And that is really easily damaged if you experience an impact to your brain, a physical impact to your brain, or not necessarily a direct impact, an indirect impact, such as falling out of a tree, falling off a ladder, that could change, that could result in a contracoup effect where your brain rattles in its skull and it rattles backwards and forwards and you bruise and damage the front part of your brain. So that can have an impact in terms of your focus or forethought and impulse control. You have your temporal lobe, which is responsible for your memory, your learning, your mood stability, your visual and auditory processing, and that's very easily damaged by head trauma as well. We also have a parietal lobe, which is responsible for sensory processing and sense of direction. That can also be damaged as a result of head trauma. And then at the back, we have our occipital lobe, which is responsible for visual processing. And finally, we have the cerebellum, which is responsible for motor and thought coordination. These are all distinct parts of our brain, and we can use specific exercises to strengthen these parts of our brain to really create a high performing brain. And if you think about it from a child's perspective, when we're first born, we have very limited visual processing, and that's because our brain myelinates from the back to the front, so it covers the nerves, the brain neurons in our brain myelinate, so they cover themselves in a sheath just like electrical wire to become more efficient, and that then protects them as well. And that's what happens as we mature, and that myelination doesn't complete until we're 25 as females and approximately 28 as males, and that's all the way to the front is the last part of our brain to develop. That's why it's so important as parents that we act as that prefrontal cortex, that cop for our kids, because they haven't got a fully developed brain. They don't have that focus, forethought and impulse control that we have as mature adults. So your brain is very soft, about the consistency of soft butter, tofu or custard, or somewhere in between egg whites and gelatin. But the thing is, it's housed in a really hard skull. And that really hard skull has sharp bony ridges where our eye sockets are formed. And what happens is that if we experience a head trauma, and it doesn't have to be a massive blow to the head, I've suffered moderate traumatic brain injury as a result of many, many minor knocks from playing football, falling off bikes, falling over, having skiing accidents. What happens is our brain rattles inside our skull. It's housed in fluid, and it hits these sharp bony ridges, and that causes us brain damage. It causes damage to our brain, excuse me, and that can affect our brain function quite significantly, depending on the extent of the damage and the duration in which that head trauma has occurred. So it's really important, excuse me, to understand that brain injuries really matter. And many of my clients actually have head trauma that's been undiagnosed by standard medicine, medical approaches. So what's the difference between what is brain health and brain reserve? And how is it different to mental health? Well, brain health covers everything associated with how our brain functions, from looking at how our brain is functioning as a result of a head trauma to how it's functioning over a period of our life, from changes that we have in our life through puberty, through to giving birth. And we know that there is a risk that women can get post menopausal post birth depression. I've forgotten the name of it. And they can also get depression as a result of menopause and other changes as a result of the changes that we have as females from a hormonal perspective. And then we also have changes in our brain as our brain matures over time. It cleans out the connections that are no longer needed. And if we don't look after our brain correctly, and if we don't create a high-performing brain over the long term, then we increase our risk of Alzheimer's disease, which is a form of dementia, as well as other chronic long-term illnesses. And so our brain reserve is the amount of capacity we have available from the point of birth until we become symptomatic. So we could become symptomatic in terms of memory loss. We could become symptomatic in terms of incurring a head trauma. We could become symptomatic in terms of catching COVID. That has nothing to do with the mental health aspect. Mental health is a subset of brain health. So the key thing here is we can strengthen our brain reserve, but the brain reserve that we are born with is dependent on how we are grown in the womb, and also any genetic predispositions that we have, and how our mum has helped us develop in the womb, and any trauma that has occurred as part of the birthing experience as well. And that sets our brain reserve from birth. And that brain reserve changes over time, and it's dependent on so many things, such as our lifestyle, any major traumas that we experience throughout our childhood, as well as our teens and our adulthood. That can have a huge impact. Any head trauma that we have, any chronic stress we experience, anything that affects our brain can impact our brain reserve. And so we'll all have our own unique profile as a function of our age, depending on life events that have occurred. And at some point in our life, we may become symptomatic, and that could be symptomatic. Typically, symptomatic is termed in the terms of mental illness. But from a brain health perspective, we're looking at all of you. We're not just looking at, do you have an issue with your mental health? We're looking at, how is your brain functioning, and is it functioning optimally for you personally? So we take a patient-centric or a brain-centric approach to get the best out of your brain and to make sure that that brain serves you for life. And the key thing here is, just because you become symptomatic doesn't mean that that is you written off. That is not the case. You have the power to make your brain better. You're not stuck with the brain you have. You can improve it. You can strengthen it over time. So you can climb back up that brain curve, that brain reserve, and rebuild your brain reserve to strengthen your resilience and to make you more resilient to brain struggles in the future, as well as where you are now. So I hope that makes sense. When we talk about mental health, we look at making sure that we are okay. So often the question from a mental health perspective is, are you okay? Yes or no? Which is basically asking, are you symptomatic? Do you have symptoms in relation to mental health symptom or not? And you could literally be on that cusp of being symptomatic and suddenly you're seen as okay. But there's all of this other stuff to build your brain reserve, to really create that high performing brain that isn't covered in a mental health perspective. And we are really focused on making sure that your brain is performing optimally, that you're protecting it, that you're looking after it, that you're growing it, that you're strengthening it, that you're not just okay, that you are feeling extraordinary. So the current psychiatric diagnostic model typically looks at you from a symptomatic perspective. It treats the symptom, it doesn't treat the person. So if we're focusing from a mental health perspective, your symptom may be depression, the diagnosis is depression by the doctor, and the treatment is antidepressants. The reality is that depression can be caused by many, many different things. The root causes can be vast, including head trauma, as well as Lyme's disease. Now, Lyme's disease is treated with antibiotics, and head trauma can be treated with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, as well as approaches to supporting your recovery through appropriate supplementation and exercise. That doesn't mean you need to have the antidepressants that are typically prescribed in the first instance. And the focus here is that we really need to move away from a model that focuses on treating the symptoms to a model that treats the system by looking really at the root cause. And that's so important because so many diagnoses are either incorrect because they haven't looked at the brain's function, and I often find that from myself, or they have failed to diagnose anything at all. And actually, my client has a really severe brain health struggle. So looking at the mental health profile, just to put this into context, when we reviewed people at the beginning of COVID and asked them how they were feeling, and also asked them to assess their mental health rating out of 10, you can see that the people reported a whole heap of different feelings which had no correlation to their average mental health rating. And that's because when we look at our average mental health rating, we look at all of our life. But there's certain aspects of our life that could be tipping us over, that could be making us feel really negative and affecting our behaviours. But in the context of assessing whether we're okay or not, we'll give ourselves an okay rating. But reality is there's much more detail behind that. You cannot correlate someone's feelings with their mental health rating. And it's important that we take the time to do a deep dive into understanding what people are feeling, and not just asking, are you okay, which is labeling you as having the problem, but from a brain health perspective, we ask the question, is everything okay? And that's the first question we ask, because then we are looking at the system that could be causing the problem rather than the person being the problem. And if we think about this in the context of educating children, I took my daughter to the hospital because the doctor thought she had a heart murmur. And we went to see a paediatrician. We talked about the daughter's heart, what could be wrong with it. She had a heart image. They checked that the valves were okay. They checked that the blood flow was working properly. And it was really easy to have a conversation about her heart. And she loved Dr. Kelly. He was the best thing since sliced bread. Yet when we talk to our children about their brain health, we don't talk about the organ, their brain, in the same way we talk about the heart. We label the child as having the problem, which is fundamentally wrong. Because if we shift the conversation to you having a problem, to understanding what the organ is struggling with, which is the brain, then it's a much easier conversation to explore with children, a much easier conversation to have. We can point to where our brain is. We can talk about how we can optimize it. We can talk about things that help it and hurt it. And we can really create an educational platform that is helpful for the child and doesn't have any stigma associated with it, or at least you are limiting the stigma associated with the conversation, because you're not talking about the child, you're talking about the brain, and we all have a brain. So findings from the surveys is people had generic struggles such as allocating mean compression time, the change of routine, connecting with others, dealing with the unknown finances. You can see there's a vast variety of different root causes that relate to that person's mental health rating. So we can't just focus on, are you okay or not okay? We really need to dive into the question, is everything okay? And then look at the root causes that is affecting that person's brain function. So what are the core principles behind creating a high-performing brain? Well, we're going to look at two aspects here. First of all, we're going to focus on the Wellbeing Warrior framework. And this is looking at the 4 quadrants of your well-being to encompass all of you, to take a look at you holistically, take a look at you from a system perspective. And here we're looking at your emotional well-being, how you're feeling, your physical well-being, what you're doing from an exercise perspective, a nutritional, a diet perspective, a drinking perspective, and a work perspective, and anything else that relates to activities. We're looking at your mental well-being. This is very different to mental health. This is looking at your thoughts, what thoughts you are having. Do you have the clarity of thought? Are you able to think clearly? What are you doing to strengthen your brain in terms of learning? How are you improving your brain from a mental performance perspective over time to make sure that we're building new connections, new neurons every day? And then finally, your spiritual well-being. This is your sense of connection to yourself and to others, your connection to your core values and beliefs, and your connection to your purpose and other people. And then finally, wrapped around this are your surroundings. And we can easily get distracted. So this is focusing on you. The target is you. The framework is designed as a target to see how much focus and attention are you paying to all of these 4 quadrants. And are you getting distracted by other things that's pulling your attention away from helping you optimize your brain and making it a high-performing brain? So present day distractions that pull us away from having optimal emotional well-being can include 24/7 news. We can easily tip ourselves into negative emotions as a consequence of all the negativity that we see in the news. We have fast food is destroying our gut microbiome. It is increasing the amount of chronic diseases. We are always on, which is heightening our stress levels, causing ourselves to have burnout. We're not taking the time to look after our physical well-being, perhaps in the way that we used to. We're not taking the time to have the right amount of sleep that we used to, the right amount of decompression that we need, making sure that we're turning ourselves off and taking the time out for ourselves. Mental well-being, social media, we're consuming junk information, which is making us more susceptible to consuming junk rather than learning things that really support us. We're filling our mind with things that don't necessarily serve us. That can cause us to have brain fog. It can cause us to have overwhelm. It can cause us to struggle with clarity of thought. And finally, spiritual well-being, this need for immediacy of digital response to connect with people, this need to always be there. Plus, we also have the very opposite, which is the social isolation, that feeling of loneliness that people are experiencing. And you can experience loneliness even if you're surrounded by people, depending on what aspect of your well-being is deficient. So you could feel lonely emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually as a result of not having that particular quadrant topped up and fulfilled. So what I would like you to think about is, how would you rate yourself out of 10 in terms of your emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual well-being? How well connected are you to your emotions? How well dialed in are your emotions? Whereas 10 is optimal and 1 is not performing well at all. Physical, are you focused on eating right? Are you doing the work that is helping you feel fulfilled? Are you exercising frequently? Are you getting enough sleep? There's so many layers behind this. Mental well-being, are you consistently learning new things every day? Are you focusing on things that really help you get that clarity of thought, that help you focus, that help you concentrate, that help you plan? So we're talking about our prefrontal cortex in this instance. And your spiritual well-being, are you connected to your core values and beliefs? Are you truly connected to other people, to the world, to that higher power that is beyond you, that may be Mother Nature or God? Do you feel that you are living your purpose, that you are living purposefully every day and living with passion and purpose as well? So the fundamentals, the core principles to building a high performing brain is making sure that we are dialing in with our 4 quadrants of well-being, making sure our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, our mental well-being, and our spiritual well-being is optimal. We're avoiding those distractions that pull us away from showing up as our best self. And making sure, as I went earlier on in the slide, is that we are optimizing and dialing into the 5 pillars. So this is, how are you feeling? Our feelings, our actions, our connections to ourselves and others, the thoughts that we're having, making sure that we're thinking positive thoughts and that we're squashing any negative thoughts, and optimizing our surroundings and how we sense them. So making sure that our surroundings are serving us rather than hurting us. And that is so important in the context of COVID, because we're finding that our surroundings, our connections may cause us to develop COVID. Our actions may cause us to not recover from COVID. Our thoughts may result in us feeling overwhelmed, which increases our stress levels and our cortisol levels. Our feelings are more negative, and that prevents us from recovering as effectively as we could do if we had all of these 5 pillars optimized to make sure that we are truly showing up as our best self and building that high performing brain. So brain optimization, what does it feel like? When your brain is optimized, you feel deeply aware, engaged, and empowered to live into your best self. Is your brain optimized? What is it that you need to do? What one thing could you do today to help yourself move towards a high performing brain? So I'd like you to do a brain health assessment now where 1 is low and 10 is high, and answer these 6 questions. Feelings. Do you feel you're able to manage your emotions consistently and express how you want to feel to yourself and those around you? Just rate yourself out of 10 and write your scores down. Actions. Are you doing the things that are important to you, such as exercise, connecting with families and friends, the hobbies, community engagement and work, and also nutrition and diet and drinking the right things and avoiding temptations and distractions that pull you away from showing up as your best self? Connection to yourself. Do you feel clear about who you are, what your purpose is, what your values and beliefs are, and feel congruent with them and connected to the best of you? Connections to others. Do you feel truly connected to those that are important to you in life and have a network of people that help you generate happiness and achieve your goals and dreams? Thoughts. Do you have clarity of thought as to what is important to you in life? And are you able to manage any negative self-talk and take that time out to think strategically about how you can achieve your goals and dreams? And finally, do you feel that your surroundings at home, in the workplace, and also in the community are optimized to help you show up as your best self? And that's one that people often forget. So let's dial in now into pillar 1, which is one of the core principles. And this is really focusing on the first quadrant of our well-being, our emotions. Our emotions drive everything. Our emotions drive our behaviors. Our thoughts drive our emotions. And these are all interconnected quadrants. So when we've got them all dialed in, we can be very much focused on building that high-performing brain. When we're not dialed in, when we're distracted, then that is where our brain is not performing optimally. So to achieve emotional mastery, are you aware of yourself? What 3 words would you use to describe how you're feeling right now? And write them down. It's really important that we do this because we spend so much of our time focusing on how we want to feel, but we don't take the time to check in really how we are feeling. And the feelings that we have at that time drive our behaviors. And often it's surprising. Often we may find that we're feeling in a negative way. And by checking in with our feelings, we're bringing our deep limbic system, our very deep part of our brain, to the forefront of our mind. We're bringing it to our attention. We're bringing our subconscious into our conscious, and we're making ourselves aware. And by doing that, we're strengthening our awareness of our internal operating system, which is driven by our reptilian mind, our emotional mindset, our amygdala, that fight, flight, freeze, or defensive rage part of our brain. And the more we bring that to our attention, the more we bring that into our awareness, the better we are able to manage our emotions and achieve emotional mastery. So the second one is, what 3 words would define the best of you? How would you like to show up when you look at yourself in the mirror each morning? And do write those down. And the second 3 words that define the best of you, put them as a reminder in your phone so that you can remind yourself each day, this is the person that I want to show up as, and focus on the words that are really going to be the needle movers for you. So pillar 2 is our actions. And this relates to physical mastery. Do my habits fit the goals I have in my life? What habits are hurting you right now from a brain health perspective? For me, for example, it was excessive alcohol consumption, excessive sugar consumption that was serving me in the short term to make me feel better because I was in a really dark place. But over the long term, it was killing my brain cells. It was restricting blood flow to my brain. It was causing inflammation in my brain as a result of the sugar. I was addicted to sugar. So had a huge impact on my brain health, and my diet wasn't optimal either. I was eating far too much simple carbohydrates, far too much sugar related products, which were not serving me, were not helping me perform at my best from a brain health perspective. And what habits are really helping you move towards your goals and dreams? So celebrate those successes, focus on one thing that you can do today to change yourself, to take that one step towards having habits that will serve you rather than hurt you. So pillar 3 is your connections. These are your connections to yourself and to others. And this is really around achieving spiritual mastery. Am I connected to who I am and those that support my growth? Am I clear about my values and beliefs? And am I congruent with them and connected to the best of them? Do you know what they are? Maybe take the time to write them down. And do I have a network of people, of growth friends, of a growth people that help me generate that happiness and achieve my goals and dreams? And these two really fundamental things that we really often don't take the time to think about and to connect with at a personal level. We need to do the internal work first, and then we need to do the external work, finding people that are going to support you rather than pull you down. Thoughts. Now, thoughts are so important because our thoughts drive our emotions, they drive our feelings, and our feelings drive our behaviors. So we rarely take the time to check in with those thoughts that are running in the back of our mind. And it's important that we do, because often many of the thoughts that we have are not true, and it's important we take the time to challenge them. So this is all about achieving mental mastery, to really be dialed in on your thought processes, on your forethought, on your judgment, on your impulse control, on your planning activities, on your strategic thinking, to really dial in into your mental quadrant of your well-being. Am I able to manage my self-talk, think strategically about my goals, and enhance my mind through training? What thoughts am I listening to? Write your thoughts down and challenge them, talk back to them. What strategic planning and mindful practices are helping me achieve my goals? Do you have any in place? What are you doing from a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly perspective to help you make sure you stay focused and on task? And then finally, our surroundings. And this is about looking at how our environment, everything about our surroundings, is supporting our brain health and helping us perform at a high performing level in the context of brain health. And this is really awareness mastery. Are my surroundings at home and in the workplace optimized to help me show up as my best self? What aspects of my surroundings are not optimized? And what changes to my surroundings can I make to feel more relaxed, motivated, and focused? So now I want to move on to emotional mindset management. And this is really about dialing into the first quadrant of your well-being, your emotional well-being. And we can use Havening, which is an incredibly powerful tool and described as the best treatment for emotionally traumatizing experiences, and particularly for PTSD, by Dr. Sandlin Lowe at the Amen Clinics. And we use this as part of our emotional mindset management approach to help people with trauma recovery in our group coaching programs. And you can sign up to our group coaching, trauma recovery group coaching, to really help you unchain your pain. And there is 30% off now. It runs every week. twice a week, and you can choose the sessions that you want to go to really help you unchain your pain. You can sign up for a single group session, 3 sessions or 6 sessions. And there's also other opportunities as well if you want to have one-on-one coaching, which is incredibly powerful to help you let go. I used Havening. I was a client of Havening when I was struggling with witnessing the trauma of my dad's death, which my mother also witnessed as well. And within just a single session, I went from a distress rating of 7 out of 10 to 2 out of 10. And within a week, I could talk about the experience without having an emotional meltdown. And previously, I was crying pretty much every day. It is incredibly powerful for helping people with trauma. I've helped people with PTSD remove their flashbacks, helped people who've had birthing trauma, who've had childhood trauma, domestic abuse, grief. I've been able to help my mum let go of the grief associated with her experience, bruxism, workplace bullying. It can be used for a vast variety of things. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more here. If you would like to find out more, please do connect with us and register yourself for a 15-minute consultation. So what is Havening? Well, Havening taps into our inherent superpower, which is the power of human touch, which we possess from birth. We need human touch to help us emotionally regulate ourselves. And they found that depending on the area of your body that you touch, you can generate delta waves. And these delta waves are calming waves that are generated in your brain, typically in the deep sleep phase of our brain. So when we stroke our cheek, we get 90 times the baseline level of delta waves. Our shoulders is 3 to 38 times. The palms of our hands is up to 5 times. And then we also have lateral eye movement that is used in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is another approach to help people with trauma. So it taps into the same thing of generating those calming delta waves in our mind. So how can we use this approach of human touch to help us release trauma? Well, when we experience a trauma, at the heart of the activation of the traumatic experience is our limbic system, and deep within our limbic system is the amygdala, which is our fight, flight, freeze, or defensive rage part of our brain. And that's the thing that turns on when we feel that we need to escape from something. What's the requirement for traumatization? We need to have experienced an event or a series of events. The event needs to have a meaning associated with it, that it is a threat to our survival. And that could be a physical threat to our survival or perceived threat to our survival, that it is inescapable, that we cannot escape from it because we are trapped in that particular situation for whatever reason, physically or psychologically. The landscape in our mind is vulnerable. So our brain, and this goes back to our brain reserve, the landscape in our mind is vulnerable, so it is more likely to perceive it as a trauma. So if we think about this, if we think about the example of learning to climb a rock face, if you ask somebody to climb up a sheer rock face and they've never climbed it before, our immediate response will be fear, because we haven't conditioned ourselves to learn how to do it in a safe way. So we've gone straight from a feeling of safety to a feeling of danger. We haven't gone through that learning zone. So how do we develop the landscape in our mind? Is about training our mind to appreciate where our perceived level of danger is. And so if we climb up a rock face that is vertical, but we've done lots and lots of training to know how to get up that rock face, then experienced climbers who have done that training, who know how to do the moves, will not feel fear, will not be traumatized, and they could even climb it without a rope if they are that experienced. So it is about training our mind, training ourselves, cognitively to make sure that we are able to understand whether it is a threat or not. And it depends on how our landscape in our mind has evolved over time, and that goes back to our brain reserve. So what are the requirements for encoding of a trauma in the brain? Well, when we have a traumatic experience, our brain sends high frequency gamma waves down the brain neurons to the neuron, the synaptic nerve itself. So the high frequency gamma waves travel down the brain cells. At the synaptic gap, what they do is they tell chemicals to plug AMPA receptors onto the surface of the brain cells. These act as short circuits. These short circuits are there to help our survival. It's part of our genetic evolution. So should the event happen again, it's there for a quick recall. The trouble with that is any cognitive, which is thought processes, autonomic heart rate increasing, sweating, blood pressure changes, somatosensory, so these are sensory changes or tingling on our body, and emotional content is encoded in our brain as part of those AMPA receptors being plugged onto the surface. So those are our outflows. That's what gets encoded into our brain. AMPA receptors say, do this when this event happens. Now, what we want to do is we want to remove those AMPA receptors from the surface to tell them that they're no longer needed. It's no longer a traumatic experience. So when we apply havening touch and decode the trauma in our brain, this time we send these really low frequency delta waves into our brain, and these send different chemicals, gamma waves, cortisol, and a whole heap of other chemicals plug the AMPA receptors onto the surface. The lower frequency waves tell us that we're in a safe space. This is when we're deep sleep, and they tell us send different chemicals to the brain cell through the synaptic gap. And these different chemicals, which include oxytocin, serotonin, GABA, amongst others, they tell us to unplug the AMPA receptors. So what we do is we momentarily recall the memory for a very short period of time to activate those AMPA receptors. And then at the gap, these low frequency delta waves unplug the AMPA receptors. They literally unglue them from the surface of the brain cell, and they're returned back into the brain cell. So any outflow, any cognitive, autonomic, somatosensory, emotional content that you have encoded as part of your trauma can be altered and or removed. So it's incredibly powerful. We do this with human touch or with havening touch, and you can also do it with lateral eye movement as well. And the thing with this is it's incredibly quick. So the experience can be active for up to 10 minutes. So we call this 15 minutes to freedom. So within 15 minutes, you can decode, you can reduce or remove that traumatic outflow, the emotional outflow that you may have as a result of the experience very quickly through the power of delta waves, which is generated through human touch. We all have this inbuilt superpower. So what's the benefits of emotional mindset management using this approach coupled with brain health coaching? You don't have to say anything about your ordeal to experience the benefits. You don't have to believe in it to work, because the delta waves will do their work even if you don't believe in it yourself. It can be used to treat a vast array of conditions, from PTSD to phobias to undiagnosed physical pain, which is often the root cause lies in our psychology. It's been scientifically proven havening to significantly reduce the autonomic responses, which are easy to measure, such as our heart rate, blood pressure, and also the stress hormone cortisol, in just one 1 hour session, which is why we do group sessions for an hour. And you can do it on yourself, for yourself, anytime you need it. And this is simply through touching your face, washing your hands, and stroking your shoulders. And you can, if you are feeling stressed or anxious, just practice doing this stroking motion for 5 to 10 minutes while thinking of something completely different if you are activated at the time. Sing a song that you enjoy, take yourself away to an enjoyable place, and that will help reduce any emotional charge associated with a day-to-day stress or anxiety. If you are experiencing trauma, there is the opportunity to unchain your pain using our emotional mindset management approach. And today we are offering 30% off our group coaching. So please do make sure you register for that to take advantage of this special offer, which is available for a limited time. And it is a huge discount, and it's not a lot of money in the scheme of helping you unchain your pain. Available weekly right now for you to help you unchain your pain and move towards building that high performing brain. So outcomes from this workshop is hopefully you've gained a deeper understanding of the complexities associated with brain health and the wellbeing challenges experienced. You've gained an insight into brain reserve and how this determines your risk for any brain struggles. You've also hopefully got much greater clarity on what the difference is between brain health and mental health, and why it's so important, particularly for our children, that we start talking about brain health, about the organ that is the engine for life. You've also been given knowledge into the core principles to build towards building a high performing brain, using the 5 pillars of brain health to really help you assess and boost your brain power and performance. And I've given you insight into how you can unchain your pain from past trauma and unhelpful experiences and tackle any day-to-day struggles using the emotional mindset management approach, which is underpinned by havening. If you would like to find out more, if you want to register for trauma recovery group coaching to really help you unchain your pain, which is the first of the 3rd parts to really help you step into your best self, then make sure you register at ruthmaryallen.com/trauma recovery. There is a link below this presentation to help you access it right now and take advantage of the 30% off. Do use that code BRAINHEALTH30 to get advantage of the 30% off. If you would like to unchain your pain from past trauma or unhelpful experiences, you can either register for the group coaching, or you can apply, or you can contact us to get one-on-one coaching if it's something that you really want to take the time for yourself and arrange a 15-minute consultation to talk to us about how we can best support you. If you want to unlock the secrets to gain greater mental clarity and performance, to more effectively lead yourself and your team to that next level, and also unleash your full potential by optimizing your unique brain, please do connect with us through the links that are shown below, ruthmaryallen.com/connect. That will lead you to a link so you can contact us directly, or you can arrange a 15-minute consultation. If you are interested in applying for coaching on one-on-one nature or group coaching program that isn't trauma recovery, then please do visit ruthmaryallen.com/apply. And of course, if you have any questions or problems or queries about brain health and how we can support you and your family building a high-performing brain that will serve you now and later, then please do email us at support@ruthmaryallen.com. As I mentioned, for a limited time, as part of this workshop, you can get 30% off group coaching to really unchain your pain with the coupon code BRAINHEALTH30 to enter that at checkout. And that comes in for just a single group coaching session at only $66. As I mentioned, you can get that freedom in as fast as 15 minutes. So don't hesitate, sign up now. If you are struggling with trauma and unhelpful experience and you truly want to unchain your pain, you don't have to say anything about the experience to achieve the benefit. It is incredibly quick. If you do want help from a one-on-one perspective, then please do email us, do connect with us at ruthmaryallen.com/connect, or email us at support@ruthmaryallen.com. Now, if you have any questions, then please do post in the chat below. I hope this has served you. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. Please do provide us with feedback. If you, as I mentioned, if you want to register for trauma recovery group coaching, then visit ruthmaryallen.com/trauma recovery and enter the code BrainHealth30 at checkout to take advantage of 30% off for a limited time. You can also follow me on any of the Facebook accounts. If you want to arrange a 15-minute consultation with us to really understand how we can best serve you in building a high-performing brain and helping you really unchain, unlock, and unleash your full potential, then visit our website, ruthmaryallen.com/connect, if you want to connect with us. I have had so much fun delivering this training. I hope you have enjoyed it. I look forward to connecting with you. I look forward to hearing the feedback from the show Brain Health Unchaining Your Pain. Make sure you serve your brain. You are not stuck with your brain, the brain that you have. You can make it better. We are here to support you. We are on your side and by your side to help you get the best out of your engine of life and achieve that high performing brain that is unique to you. I'll talk to you soon.